city of Philadelphia drained the water from the fountain in Love Park. In doing so, they unintentionally transformed the 30-foot wide fountain into one of the most iconic skateboarding spots in the entire world. Sadly, the city had outlawed skateboarding at the park in the 1990s, and if the skaters wanted to take a crack at Love Gap, a 15-foot launch from the granite walkway to the bottom of the fountain, they had to do so with their head on a swivel. Philly cops were notorious for handing out expensive tickets and hauling kids off to jail. But for the past week, the cops had turned a blind eye to the skaters, most likely because they were spread thin with the protests downtown. Occupy Wall Street first began in New York City in mid-September, then it spread like wildfire, making its way down the northeast corridor to Philadelphia 3 weeks later on October 6th. Each day, more and more protesters turned up. The marchers and activists were like gremlins, only it wasn't water that made them multiply. It was posters and megaphones. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered at Love Park each day, but most of the protests were actually taking place across the street at City Hall. A tent city had erupted, and the marble walkways were swarming with tents, encampments, and meeting areas. For the past several days, my Starbucks cup and I had been plopping down on one of the benches in Love Park to watch the skateboarders. It was overcast, the sky filled with pewter clouds, and the temperature hovered in the mid-50s. Half the leaves in the park had fallen, and several were strewn on the fountain's exposed turquoise bottom. "Ronnie! Ronnie!" the nearby crowd of skaters chanted. Many held out their phones ready to record the action to come. Ronnie was decked out in jeans, a T-shirt, and a backward cap. He pedaled on his board out of sight, disappearing behind the stacked red letters of the 13-foot-tall aluminum love sculpture. A few seconds later, he skated back into view, paddling swiftly toward the edge of the fountain. He ollied up a foot, the top of his board glued to the bottom of his sneakers. He sailed through the air, 5 feet, then 10 feet, then smacked down to the fountain's bottom with a loud clap. His board shot out from beneath his feet, sending him careening forward. He hit the ground and rolled onto his shoulder, stopping just 2 feet short of the fountain's concrete base. I shuffled through my signs. 3 days earlier, I'd found 2 discarded pieces of blank poster board and a black Sharpie lying on the ground. I decided to put them to good use. I found the sign I wanted and held it up. "A 6?" Ronnie asked, getting to his feet and gazing at my rating. "A friggin' 6? You want something higher, you have to land it," I said, grinning. "Or you have to break something and not a hairline fracture. I want to see bone." He laughed. The next 2 skaters didn't even come close to landing the trick. I gave them a 2 and a 3, respectively. Following them was clearly a crowd favorite. She was young, maybe 15, and her black hair was twisted in a tight braid. This was her 3rd attempt in the hour I'd been here. My stomach tightened as she disappeared behind the love sculpture. The other skaters knelt and pounded the front wheels of their boards against the ground. Bang, 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 bang. "Come on, Braid," I muttered under my breath. "You got this." She shot into view, ollied high, and flew through the air. Initially, it looked like a perfect landing, but after hitting the ground, her board slid out to the right. She fell backward, but somehow stayed on her feet. There was a collective groan. So close. She glanced in my direction. I held up an 8. She shrugged and smiled. Ronnie was up again next. When he was halfway through the air, I knew it was destined to end badly. The board had left his feet, and he was at the mercy of gravity and physics. He fell, 1 foot hitting the bottom of the fountain, the other hitting the edge of the last stair. The sound of an ankle shattering echoed through the still autumn air. Before reaching for his ankle, he rolled over and looked at me. I held up a 10. He gave me a thumbs up. After Ronnie's injury, there was a lull in the action. A young boy was sitting with his mom to my left, and he'd been observing and enjoying my judging. I handed him my stack of numbers and said, "You're in charge now." He took the signs with wide eyes and nodded solemnly. He would have thought I'd just knighted him. I heard chanting coming from across the street and headed in that direction. As I walked to the corner of JFK Boulevard and 15th, I could hear a large group chanting, "O-C-C-U-P-Y, what's that spell? Occupy." Catchy. I crossed the street and approached a group of protesters. Most were in the late teens or early 20s, and there was a healthy assortment of black, brown, and beige bodies. Many were likely college students playing hooky from their Tuesday classes at one of the universities, Temple, Drexel, or Penn, within a 2-mile radius. A handful of protesters appraised me. In gray running sweats and a red zippered hoodie.